Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm glad you could join me today. My name is Kelly and today I'm going to talk about how do you deal with bullies. So we're all going to encounter bullies at some time during our life. This is a normal part of life. However, do you experience intense pain and suffering when you encounter a bully? While it's impossible to avoid bullies altogether in this life, experiencing intense pain and suffering is unnecessary. And from a spiritual point of view, what we have to do is shift our perspective to avoid intense pain and suffering. So your suffering is not caused by the event of being bullied. It's caused by your reaction or your response to being bullied. If you're feeling intense pain and suffering, this is a sign that you're probably operating from your ego or the egoic mind, rather than your authentic true self. So to define the ego or the egoic mind, this is a mind-made identity that you think you are or you think you should be. Whereas your true self is an eternal spirit having a temporary human experience. Most of us will make up an ego identity for ourselves because we're usually born into a family who is also operating from their ego identities, although they might not be aware of it. For example, often a family will expect a child to follow the family rules, to fit in, to be an asset to the family, and make the family look good to the outside world. And at worst, parents may play out their own unhealed damage on a child in an attempt to rid themselves of negative emotions they feel about themselves. So we often grow up believing that the ego identity that our parents have given us is our true self. We could be called a little angel or the talented one, or conversely, a bad influence or the troublemaker. None of these things are really us. They're just made up labels. But when you start to believe that you are these labels, you start to act more and more like the false identity and become more and more detached from who you really are. So I'm going to outline an example of, of being bullied. So you are a renter and the real estate agent has organised a normal routine property inspection. But when the agent comes over, they start to do things differently than they've done before without telling you that their policies have changed. And when you observe this and question it, they turn on you and say that you're stopping them from doing their job. They threaten to leave and make a negative report about you. And so you let them do the new behaviour. And then you ring the office and ask why things have changed. And the office says things have not changed. We've always done it that way, which is a lie. And then they say, who do you think you are? You're just a renter. You have no right to question us and you're just making trouble. And you better be careful or we'll find a reason to ask you to leave. This is outright bullying. All you are doing is questioning something that has obviously changed, and you are gaslighted, that is, told that it's always been like that, lied to, insulted, told that you're only a renter, who do you think you are, and then threatened that you might be asked to leave if you make trouble. If you are operating from an ego identity, especially one who has been bullied in the past, you may feel intense amounts of anger, shame, humiliation. You may feel small and insignificant after this event, and you may start to self-sabotage and or plan revenge on the real estate agents. But if you are operating from your authentic self, which is the divine soul having a temporary human experience, you might react by saying, these people are lying and insulting me because they are at that developmental level and they can't act any other way. But I am not going to interact with them on that level. I know my worth, and so I'm just not going to play that game. In the first instance, where the ego is triggered, you might respond to the agent on the phone by saying something like, "How dare you speak to me like that? I demand some respect." And in the second example, where your ego is not being triggered, you may say something like, "Thank you for your time. I've got to go now because I have some things to attend to." So that it's a neutral interaction, and then you can decide what to do when you're no longer speaking to that agent. So it's the same situation, but two very different responses. First, you feel attacked and diminished. The second, you are fully aware of what's happening, but you don't change your calm, strong center. In the first example, there is a lot of pain and suffering as a result of being bullied. In the second example, there is no pain and suffering, but it's exactly the same situation. In the second example, you may then decide to act and do some research into organizations that monitor real estate agents to see what your rights are, or you may look for somewhere else to live on your own terms. But either way, you have not suffered negative emotions in the second example. So how do we get to the stage where we can deal with bullies without having our ego triggered by past events? It's not easy. Like most skills that are valuable in this life, it takes a lot of practice. The first step in this practice is to firstly be in the present moment. That is, you're not expecting that life is going to go smoothly all the time. You know that life has its positive times and its negative times. So when something negative comes up, like a real estate agent bullying you, you don't immediately run away, try and escape the situation by saying things like, this shouldn't be happening. Why do bad things happen to good people? Anything like that. You accept it, accept that it's happening, and that this is one of the things that life has presented to you. And so you stay in the present moment and observe what's happening as much as possible. The second step is to be aware of any negative emotions that arise. This could be a sign that your ego is being triggered, and you may be in danger of disappearing into old beliefs and old behaviors. As soon as you can after the interaction, go back into the feelings that you experienced. Go back into the negative emotions that you experienced and put your attention on it, on those feelings, and stay with them for a while. It's not easy to do. It's nowhere near as bad as you think it will be. As you do this, the light of your awareness can actually burn up and transform the negative emotion and the pain into something neutral or even something positive. But it's not easy to do. When you have time afterwards, you can use this as an opportunity to do some shadow work and say to yourself, where did these feelings originate from in my past? And look at these events, look at the feelings, and look at the stories about yourself that you've made up, the ego identity that you've made up for yourself. And evaluate, do you still want to have that picture of yourself, or do you want to see it for what it is, just a made-up story? And as you burn up that old identity and transform it, you will experience yourself more as you really are. That is the divine soul just having a human experience. And you'll realize the depths and the beauty and the power within yourself. As you do this, the light of your awareness shining on those negative emotions can actually transform those emotions into something neutral or even positive. I remember doing this first at a 3-day retreat in Scotland that I was doing with Gangaji, and she told us to sit with those negative emotions. They were really dark ones for me at the time, and we sat with them for a long time, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. It was very hard to do, but eventually I felt a fountain of what seemed to me like white flowers radiating out of that pain. And it was an amazing experience, very, very healing, and totally unexpected. This is totally unrelated, but I have to say how deeply happy and relieved I am that Julian Assange has been released. He arrived back in Australia last night and would have spent his first free night with his family in a very, very long time. I feel like this heralds the start of the fourth density that we have the opportunity to move into now. And I might talk about that in my next post, in my next video. So thank you for listening. Wherever you are in the world, I wish you love and courage in your journey, and I'll see you next time. Take care and bye for now.